There was a time, not long ago, when a company name was more than a brand. It was a promise. For pilots, flight attendants, and the millions of people they carried, that promise was Boeing. And it was summed up in 4 simple words, spoken with the conviction of a creed. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. For the better part of a century, Boeing was not just a company, it was a cathedral of engineering, a monument to American ambition. Run by slide rule-wielding, coffee-fueled engineers who lived and breathed aviation, its purpose was not merely to build airplanes, but to build legends. They gave us the 707, the plane that launched the jet age and shrank the globe. They gave us the 727, the workhorse that connected smaller cities. And they gave us this, the 747, the queen of the skies, a machine so audacious, so far beyond the perceived limits of its time that Pan Am, its first customer, had to build new terminals just to accommodate it. But today, that promise is broken. That creed is a chilling relic. A company once defined by masterpieces of engineering is now defined by a horrifying gallery of failures. Doors blowing off mid-flight at 16,000 feet. 2 brand new billion-dollar jets falling out of the sky within 5 months of each other. And a steady, grim drumbeat of whistleblower testimony, painting a picture of a company at war with its own legacy. A company that has lost its way. This isn't a story about a single faulty part or a line of bad code. This is the autopsy of a corporate soul. It's the story of how the world's greatest engineering firm was systematically dismantled from the inside, hijacked by a different, more ruthless ideology. This is what happens when Wall Street tries to build airplanes. To understand the collapse, you have to understand the golden era. For decades, Boeing's identity was inseparable from Seattle. The executives in the corner offices weren't just managers, they were engineers themselves. Men like Bill Allen, who bet the entire company on the 707. They spoke the language of the factory floor because often they had started there. Their offices were a short walk from the assembly lines, a constant physical reminder that their decisions had real-world consequences measured in rivets and hydraulics. The culture was simple, almost monastic. Build the best, safest, most advanced airplane. The stock price, they believed, would take care of itself. But in 1997, Boeing made a fatal error in judgment. It acquired its struggling rival, McDonnell Douglas. On paper, it was a triumphant victory lap, the final consolidation of American aerospace might. Boeing was the hunter, absorbing its weakened prey. In reality, it was a reverse takeover, a corporate coup hidden in plain sight. Boeing may have bought the factories, but it was McDonnell Douglas's culture that bought Boeing's soul. The McDonnell Douglas philosophy was brutally different. It was a culture forged in the crucible of Pentagon budgets and shareholder activism, a culture that revered the bottom line above all else. Its leader, Harry Stonecipher, was a disciple of Jack Welch's slash and burn GE playbook. He saw Boeing's engineering-centric world not as a source of strength, but as a quaint, inefficient liability. Stonecipher, who would soon become Boeing's CEO, famously said, "When people say I changed the culture of Boeing, that was the intent, so that it's run like a business rather than a great engineering firm." The infection spread with alarming speed. Senior Boeing engineers, the keepers of the company's institutional knowledge, were pushed out, replaced by managers who knew how to read a balance sheet, but not a blueprint. The sacred and often costly process of double and triple checking designs was streamlined and outsourced. The mantra shifted from safety and quality to cheaper, faster, more. Then came the ultimate symbolic act. In 2001, Boeing ripped out its own heart. It moved its corporate headquarters from Seattle to Chicago, 2,000 miles away from the noise, the grease, and the reality of the factory floor. The official reason was to be closer to global markets. The unofficial message was deafeningly clear. The executives, the bean counters, were intentionally creating a firewall between themselves and the people in blue jeans who actually built the planes. The C-suite was no longer accountable to the assembly line. It was accountable only to Wall Street. From their gleaming Chicago skyscraper, the new Boeing leadership prioritized a different kind of performance. Not airspeed or fuel efficiency, but earnings per share. Between 2013 and 2019, a critical period of product development, the company incinerated over $43 billion on stock buybacks. This wasn't just rewarding shareholders, it was a strategic decision. That money could have funded a clean sheet design, a brand new 21st century successor to its aging 737. But a new plane would take a decade and cost billions, hitting the stock price in the short term. A buyback offered instant gratification. Instead, they chose the shortcut. Faced with mounting competition from Airbus's new, highly efficient A320neo, Boeing made a fateful decision. It would slap new engines on its 50-year-old 737 airframe for the fourth time. But there was a problem. The new engines were bigger and had to be mounted further forward on the wing. This fundamentally altered the plane's aerodynamics, creating a dangerous tendency for the nose to pitch up in certain flight conditions, risking a stall. An engineering-first company would have gone back to the drawing board, but the new Boeing had a different toolkit. Instead of a physical aerodynamic solution, they devised a cheap software patch, the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, or MCAS. It was a piece of code designed to automatically and aggressively push the plane's nose down, counteracting the stall risk. Then, they made the decision that sealed their fate. They concealed the very existence of MCAS from pilots. Why? To avoid triggering a Level D FAA safety classification, which would have required expensive, time-consuming simulator training for every 737 pilot in the world. Boeing didn't just want to sell a new plane, they wanted to sell it as a minor upgrade, a seamless transition that saved airlines millions. It was a marketing decision, not an engineering one. And here, the abstract rot of corporate culture became a concrete instrument of death. MCAS was designed to be powerful, but it was built on a dangerously fragile foundation. It took its data from a single, non-redundant angle of attack sensor. If that one sensor failed, the system could go haywire. On October 29, 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 took off from Jakarta. Immediately, a single faulty sensor began feeding erroneous data to the plane's computer. MCAS activated. The pilots, completely unaware of the ghost in their machine, found themselves in a wrestling match with their own aircraft. The black box data shows a desperate 11-minute struggle. For every time they pulled the nose up, the software, relentless and invisible, pushed it back down, over and over. Finally, the machine won. The plane plunged into the Java Sea, killing all 189 people on board. In the aftermath, Boeing publicly hinted at pilot error. They issued a bulletin, but insisted the 737 MAX was safe. They chose the path of cost containment over accountability. Then, less than 5 months later, on March 10, 2019, the same nightmare unfolded on a different continent. Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 took off from Addis Ababa. Once again, a faulty sensor. Once again, MCAS engaged in a terrifying automated assault on the controls. This time, the fight lasted 6 minutes. 157 souls were lost. 2 brand new planes, 2 identical failures, 346 dead. The world's entire fleet of 737 MAX jets was grounded. The lie was exposed. It wasn't pilot error. It was the predictable, horrifying result of a corporate culture that had prioritized profit over safety, hiding a fundamentally flawed design behind a wall of secret software. The 737 MAX was not an isolated incident. It was the defining symptom of the disease. The years since have revealed a horrifying systemic decay. A door plug, a panel sealing a deactivated emergency exit, blowing off an Alaska Airlines flight, leaving a gaping, refrigerator-sized hole in a plane that was only weeks old. An FAA investigation finding dozens of production flaws, from loose bolts to improperly drilled holes. And the chilling stories of whistleblowers like John Barnett, a 32-year Boeing veteran, who spoke of a factory floor where defective parts were deliberately installed and workers were pressured to cut corners, only to die under tragic and contested circumstances. The company that once built monuments to human flight was now a case study in corporate negligence. The men who took over Boeing in the late 90s believed they could apply the ruthless logic of finance to the unforgiving laws of physics. They thought they could squeeze a complex, safety-critical industrial process for every last fraction of a percent to goose the stock price and hit their quarterly numbers. They succeeded, for a time, in making the balance sheet look good. But they forgot the one fundamental, unchangeable truth that the engineers in Seattle had understood in their bones. You can financial engineer a stock price. You can financial engineer a quarterly report. But you cannot financial engineer gravity.